If you've been in DeFi and running liquidity pools and farms for a while, you've probably seen that the tighter you crank those ranges, the more APR you can squeeze out, the more money you can pump out rewards every single day. And the wider you go, the longer you're in range, which means that you're making money for a longer period of time, but you earn less per day. And maybe you've always wondered, why is that the case? Why do I actually make less on a wide range and more on a tight range? So I'm going to show you that right here. And this is actually coming from a private conversation I've had with one of my students in my private community. I'll link in the description. But this is coming from a question where it's like, why do I actually earn more on a tight range? And so pulling up my ETH USDC right here, for example, it's a 25% wide range right now, which is technically, I would consider quite wide. But in this ranging market where everything's mean reverting, this has been working flawlessly between 3,800 and almost 5 grand in Ethereum. And I'm making 184%. That's over 10% a month. But I'm going to click rebalance so we can take a peek and see exactly how that changes. You can see that if I was running something like a 4% wide range here, it's cranking out literally over 1,000% a year, which is absolutely insane. Now, if you have any experience in DeFi, you know that this range right here is not realistic to stay in. And you know that a wider range is going to keep you making money for longer. But that's not what this video is about. I can break that down here in just a second. But I want to explain why actually, let's tighten it up even more, on a 2% wide, 2,000% APR. Insane. You're making like over 100% a month. You basically would double your bag every month, right? When again, we know you're not going to stay in range. A 1% wide tick, 4,000% APR. Now, I'm going to explain to you why your APR actually changes. And this may be fundamental for some and elementary, but really, if you're getting involved in liquidity pools, sometimes it's nice to know what's actually going on in the back end and why you're making this amount versus this amount. So let's look at this example right here. So basically right here, we're looking at a 1% wide range. So let's just say we're playing with 10 grand, okay? Keep numbers simple, even across the board. If I throw 10% in this 1% wide range, it is literally $10,000 in that one tick. So all the price action in between that 1% wide range, I have $10,000 earning rewards. So all my capital is working in the actual active tick, you could say. So it's 1% wide, the current price, and all my money is working right there because that's where the current price action is, in that 1% wide tick. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little hard to explain. If I bump it like I just did to a 2% wide range, now essentially there's two ticks, 1% here, 1% here. So if I have that 10 grand, I'm putting $5,000 here, $5,000 here. Now the current price range is in that 1% tick over here. So I really only have $5,000 that's actively at work at this exact moment in time. Hence why the APR literally, as we can see, if I bump it back down, it cuts in half. Because now half my liquidity is working at this exact moment and half is waiting to be used. Does that make sense? I'm hoping so. Let's make it 4% wide. You'll notice it cuts in half again. Why? Because now I'm spread across 4 ticks. We're going to keep calling them ticks. So you can think like little buckets. There's 4 little liquidity buckets where I now have 2,500, 2,500, 2,500, 2,500. And again, the current price action is in this one bucket. So I have $2,500 that is actively working as that capital at this exact moment in time. And as that price ranges down and back and forth, as price moves, I'm going to have a different $2,500 working on that exact tick. But right now, I have 3 ticks that are technically not actively being used. Let's double this range again. And so we're at 18%. And if I double it, shocker, the rewards cut in half because we doubled it and the APR got sliced in half because now we have 8 buckets. All with, what is that? That's like $1,250 in each bucket, $1,250 in each bucket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, there's only one actual tick being used right now, but the range is spread. So as that price chops up and down your 8% wide range, those different buckets will be used to facilitate the transactions. Again, remember, we're providing a service, so people are swapping and using our assets. But that little bucket that you're in, that one is only being used if it's the current price is on that bucket. And as it moves to the next tick, remember, so an actual good fundamental point of DeFi is that example in this pool, ETH to USDC. So remember how your assets change between each other depending on where that price is? At this current tick, everything below the current price in this range. So we can see, let's look at the bottom one of that new range we're setting, right? 45.47 is the current price. All those buckets below, the 4 buckets below, whatever it may be, those have all now been sold from ETH to USDC. And everything above it is still in Ethereum, waiting to be used for transactions and sell to Ethereum. If price action goes down towards that 4,300, as price moves down to those lower buckets, you're actually going to buy back into ETH because people are basically buying your USDC with their ETH. They're selling their ETH to you, you're giving them USDC, and you're earning those fees, that APR, right? But again, so think of each of those as fractionalized versions of this bucket that is your overall capital. You're taking that $10,000 and on an 8% wide range, you have 8 ticks. 8 ticks, 8 little buckets full of $1,250. And as that current price action needle moves to different buckets, that bucket is the one earning APR. That bucket is the one currently actually facilitating the swaps. Hopefully this is clicking for you. So let's double it again. Let's go to a 16% wide range, which is actually a common range I like to run. I actually quite like this range. And you'll see that, oh, APR cuts in half again. We doubled the range. 284%, which is like over 20% a month. That's freaking awesome. Right, and I actually quite like a 16% wide range on a stable coin. Right now I'm running a wider one, as you can see, at 25%, just because there's so much chop, so much volatility in the market right now. So now that $10,000 capital is divided 16 ways. So that capital that was divided 8 ways was $1,250. Now it's $625 in each bucket. And again, the same thing. There's now 16 buckets, and you can see how this just scales. So I'm trying to clear this up for you, and I probably made it even more freaking complicated by that situation. So if you have more questions, please leave them in the comments below. So hopefully that actually clears things up for you and didn't make things even more confusing. And again, I want to stress that just because you make more APR in those tight ranges, I was explaining to you why you make more APR. It doesn't mean you should run a tight range because you're going to go out of range and get sold out of your favorite assets faster than you can even blink a fucking eye. Like, let's be real. Ethereum can move 10%, 15% in a day, and you'll be out of range in no time. Like, even that 16% wide range I said I like so much, ETH can do that in one day. Hence why I'm running more of a 25% wide range right now. But I wanted to explain to you actually how that APR is determined. It's based off the volume and fees generated, but because when you divide your capital amongst a wider range, that is actually literally what you're doing. You're dividing it into multiple buckets. And I use this as an example at 1% wide per bucket, but there's some pools where each bucket, you could say, is like 0.3%. Or maybe there's some pools where you can only do 20% at a time. So there's different pools that are going to operate a little differently, but it's all going to work fundamentally in that same way. I think it's just important to understand actually what your money is doing while it's in that liquidity pool. You are providing that service, you are swapping assets, but your capital is only actively working where that current price actually is. If not, your capital is just sitting there waiting to be used. So the farther you divide it out, the less capital that's being actively worked at that moment in time, but the longer your shop, your crypto business is going to actually be in business. Because once it's out of range, sorry guys, store's closed. Again, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. Click that link, join my private community where I do deep dives like this with all my clients, and I teach you how to actually make a passive income off the crypto assets you already own. Make 10% a month, make 20% a month, make actual income strategies that work for you while you sleep. Again, click that link in my description, and I'll see you on the other side.